I'm celebrating. And then when I did see Bryce, still down, that's when it's tough because he is a really, really good person, genuine person as well. So that's when I'm like, oh man, I just had to take a knee and pray that everything works out and he comes back too and no lingering injuries. And then he did that and we've been messaging back and forth like private messages, and he was back home and he's doing well. And it I don't know, it's hard because two people are going in the octagon, one person's going to lose. You hope it's not you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the VeVe Vantage Podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest. As of the end of 2023, he currently holds the record for the most knockdowns in UFC featherweight history. Let's join us to welcome VeVe collector and UFC fighter Josh Emmett. This is one of the best interviews we've ever done because Josh has such a unique career. He just completed his fight in UFC 296, in which he won by KO. So we talked about his routines and mentality, things he does before, during, and after a fight, how he deals with the emotional roller coaster of setbacks and victories, what it feels like to fight for his life in the octagon, all the behind the scenes that have never been talked before, his favorite VeVe collectibles, comics, and why he's so bullish on VeVe and OMI, especially the OMI tokens. This is such a special conversation you do not want to miss. Let's get to it. All right, Josh, congrats on the KO win on UFC 296 and becoming the featherweight fighter with the most KOs in UFC history. We usually crowdsource questions on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and other social networks, and people are particularly excited about this interview with you because apparently many VeVe fans are also into MMA and UFC as well. So we are super excited to be learning from you and from your journey, both as a fighter and a collector. And I really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here, and yeah, I look forward to this. I've been part of the VeVe fam and OMI fam for quite some time. I just don't think a lot of people knew just because I didn't really say a whole lot about it. But yeah, I love the project. The community is phenomenal, and then just to touch on the record, it's most knockdowns in UFC featherweight history. I don't have the most knockouts yet, but hey, we'll get there.
Awesome. And I know Mr. V has a very big questions to get started off.
Yes, definitely. Just echoing Will's sentiments, congrats on the positive attention that you've been receiving, both for your sportsmanship and, of course, the knockout, which, scored you a pretty healthy performance bonus. That's always pretty nice, I'm sure. And looking at your background, I noticed that you used to wrestle. I did as well. And I'm guessing that your time on the mat in high school and college helped with keeping composure, both in victory and defeat. Would you mind speaking to that and what the sport's done for you as a stepping stone towards your MMA career?
Yeah, wrestling is it was my base, my foundation. That's where I came. And as you will know, the saying goes, once you've wrestled, everything in life is easy. And I stick by that 100%. The wrestling has taught me so much, and it's taught me the discipline. I grew up playing every single sport. I was in kung fu. I started actually tumbling. I was in acrobatics as a young child. And that was another foundation of mine. But man, it is the hardest thing. I don't care what anyone says. It's a 7-minute college match is harder than a 25-minute UFC fight, in my opinion. It's just so hard. It's you're trying to impose your will and hold another, obviously while I was wrestling at a young age, hold another person, a human being down, or as I get older into college at the 4-year level, a grown man down. And you're not hitting him, you're not like going for submissions, you're trying to just enforce your will on them. And it's taught me so much, even just with the lifestyle of living a healthy lifestyle, the dieting, the exercising, just the hard work. Like you get, you get out of like life and other things, whatever you're into, how much effort and time you put into it. And man, wrestling is just, I don't know, it changed my life and it set me up for where I'm at now. Without wrestling, I wouldn't be fighting. I was always a huge fan of mixed martial arts and of course the UFC at a young age. I remember watching, the UFC fights. This is back in like 1999 when I was a freshman in high school. And my best friend and we'd watch these pay-per-views and get them when there was only like one or two a year. And I always thought, man, I could do this. Like, but I was delusional back then, because I was like, I could beat these guys. And I was a freshman in high school and like Matt Hughes and all that. I would have got killed. And, but it's just crazy to kind of zoom out and just see how far I've come and just like the process of my journey and everything. And it's like, but it all stems from wrestling. I don't believe I would be where I'm at if I did not wrestling. So, I owe wrestling, everything.
Wow, that's awesome to hear, and very. I mean, it's great to hear that you were able to use that experience as a big launching pad into your career today. So, I'm very glad to hear that everything's come along very well for you.
And that's even another thing that I've used wrestling because I was good at it. I enjoyed it. I used wrestling as a tool to pay for my education as well, and so that's another thing that I think is great for student athletes and stuff like that. If they're disciplined in a sport and they're really good at it, you might as well just run with it because then it's going to obviously help your pocketbooks and of course maybe your parents, if you guys can get an education and stuff.
Absolutely. So speaking of like routines and habits and like a foundation for you, like something like in terms of stability for you as you're going through school and all post college, what what does your typical day look like for you leading up to a fight? And then same question, but when you don't have a fight scheduled.
Yeah, so man, when I have a fight scheduled, when I get I'm always in the gym working out. But when I get, a call from the matchmakers or my management, and they're like, "Hey, this is who we have. We have 10 to 12 weeks." Um, I'm all in. So that's my sole focus. Um, I become obsessed with my opponent. We watch so much film, like fight film on my opponents. We just break everything down with my coaches. And there's a lot of things that people have been fighting their whole career, okay? There's things that we watch from each fight and come up with a game plan. So maybe little tendencies that they do, maybe they have bad habits, So maybe when they're throwing a right hand and they're dropping their left hand, and I can capitalize on that. So even though we just pick up on these small things and they've been doing it their whole career, they're not going to be able to correct these bad habits over the course of 10 to 12 weeks. And so after we, just I work with the best coaches in the game. They fought at the highest level in the UFC. Like my jiu-jitsu coach, he was the Ultimate Fighter champion. He was undefeated in the UFC. My wrestling coach, Danny Castillo, he fought in the WEC for so long, and then the UFC, he's had over 20 fights with Zuffa. They own the UFC, and then my boxing coach, Joey Rodriguez, him and I have been working together for so long. Like we have such a good chemistry where he can just hold the pads and we can just flow and just go and go. And not only is, Joey my coach, he's also a mentor of mine. He's also a best friend. He's family to me. And it's so I'm just obsessed with my opponent and that I live this particular fight whenever I have a fight. I literally I wake up. I always say it's like Groundhog's Day, or I have like the most boring life because I can tell you exactly my schedule's mapped out for the entire camp. I literally eat at the same time. I have my workouts at the same time, and I literally train, eat, sleep, recover, and I just repeat that every single day for 10 to 12 weeks to where man, it is insane. People think I live this like this fun, lavish lifestyle. I'm telling my wife, I'm like, I have a really boring life in camp. Because we don't do anything, you know. But it pays off. And then so it's like two extremes. So when I'm in camp, that's all I'm doing. I miss birthday parties. I miss a lot of things just because I'm so focused. I have to go in there. I have to win because this window is so short, you know.
Mhm.
And I want to maximize it and do as well as I possibly can. Because then there'll be another, the next chapter of my life. Who knows what that will be, but we'll get there when we get there. And then after camp, when I win a fight, I finally have the just sense of relief. It's like all this weight is just lifted off of my shoulders. And then my wife and I'm the biggest foodie. And Mr. E, I'm sure you know, I swear wrestling did this to me because I've wrestled since I was a young child. I always had matches or tournaments right around the holiday. So it's always Thanksgiving I miss, Christmas I miss, all these things. And I feel like jokingly giving me an eating disorder. I don't have one, but I'm like, I'm the biggest foodie. So we love to travel. That's a passion of my wife and I. We love to eat. And then just spending time with our friends and family and we have this big circle, but it's such a tight, close-knit circle that we've had friends since we were in high school, and it's I don't know, we love our hanging out with our dogs. So it's literally like obsessed, don't do anything but train, sleep, rest, and then afterwards we have a good time for a short amount of time, and then it's kind of back to reality, and then I restart that other process. So it's this weird yeah, it's good, but it's a lot of fun, but it's gonna, who knows how much longer my career is. I think I have a good like 3 4 years left in me.
Hey guys, just a quick message. Every week, I, Mr. V, work over 20 hours to bring you the most non-BS VV content. English is my second language, and there were nights we recorded until 1 a.m. My brain stopped processing, and I naturally spoke Vietnamese to him, and it got pretty weird. But that's just how dedicated we are to this podcast. In return, we ask you to enter a gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. for you, but we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating, and tweet at us to tell us what you think, because those comments will ultimately help us to refine the content just for you. That's it. That's all you need to do. Let's get back to it.
Awesome. Awesome. And just kind of circling back. So when you're in that mindset, when you're training, in that training phase with your coaches, do you fly them in, or are they from all parts of the country or out of the country, and or are they all pretty much local already?
Yeah, so for me, I'm lucky that one of the best gyms in the world is in Sacramento in my backyard. So Uriah Faber, he opened Uriah Faber's Ultimate Fitness. So this is in 2005. I was actually wrestling at my junior college, Sacramento City College. He came in, he was handing out flyers about opening a gym. I always wanted to do this, so I was like, I'm going to go in there after the season's up, and and I did just that, and I went in there and I started training for a little while before I went down to Menlo College, just because I wanted to get my degree and I wanted to wrestle at the 4 year level, knowing that this was all part of my plan, that I was going to get better at wrestling and then I was going to come back and start fighting. Um, but luckily, he opened that gym. All my coaches are also local now, like Chris Holdsworth, Danny Castillo. They moved to, Danny's from Sacramento, but Chris moved here because they were training and they got in the UFC. They're fighting, so they live here in Sacramento. My boxing coach Joey Rodriguez is Sacramento native as well, so they're all here. So it's great. But sometimes when I'm fighting a different opponent, um, I have flown in people that I think can emulate my opponent or people that have fought my opponent at a high level. I'll fly them in just for, a week or some sparring or,
Mhm.
just training.
That's some amazing luck to have like all that support system in your backyard. I think that's pretty unheard of, because I know like a lot of the time people have to relocate and everything. And not to mention that, but to have your support system locally as well, that's amazing. That's really fortunate. So definitely glad to hear that.
And that's what I say. I truly, you know, I feel like I have the biggest and best support system. Like, being from Sacramento and just friends and family and just everyone, like the entire city gets behind me, when I fight, even though it's an individual sport and I'm going into the octagon by myself, I'm literally going in there with an army behind me. And, yeah, Sacramento is amazing, and it's just the love that I get from the city, and of course a lot of like the fans and stuff like that. Yeah, man, I'm so blessed.
Right. So and then that's awesome. And from the community, obviously your most recent fight, a lot of people are interested in what goes through your mind um during the fight and after the fight, like after the knockouts happens. So can you walk us through your mind during the fight and after you saw maybe Bryce started shaking after the KO?
Yeah, yeah. So it's man, it's like I said, I've always been a fan of the sport, mixed martial arts. I enjoy watching a lot of the fights, just when they have them on, every weekend almost, except for these next few weeks they don't have them. Um, when I'm fighting, like especially fight week starts on Monday. It starts on Monday. I have to report on Tuesday. So that's when I'm not the biggest fan of the sport, just because fight week it's just so intense. Not only I'm going through so many different, I guess like emotions, and then physically, mentally, there's so much stress on my body. I have to report to somewhere I'm not staying. I'm out of my element. So they put us up in the casino next at New York, next to the T-Mobile Arena where I fought. So now I'm in a casino, and there's like smoke, there's noise. It's out of my routine. I bring my own pillow, but sleep is affected. I have to cut quite a bit of weight. You're constantly, you know, just like the games and the voices that you're like going through in your head, because you don't know what's going to happen. I'm so prepared for the best outcome. I work with the best mind coach as well, and we visualize that finish. That finish is exactly what we went over and over and over, and I've seen play out 100, 1,000 times in my head. But it's still, I always relate fighting to. It's almost like you're going to hop into a sports car and floor it into a tree with no seatbelt. You hope it turns out for the best, but you really have no idea what's gonna happen in there. Um, so fight week, I'm not the biggest fan of fighting. It's strictly work for me. I go do all my media obligations. I cut the weight. We do the ceremonial weigh-in for the fans, and then fight day is just it's just chaotic, just all there's so much that goes into it. And we get transported to the arena. I just want to get in there, meet with the commission, do my stuff. I want to clock in, clock out. Of course, you win. Then you get to see the media. You go to the media tent, do all the photo shoots, all these things. So I always want to go see the media and then get out of the arena as fast as possible, and then enjoy the moment and celebrate with my team and family and friends that come out to support me. While I'm getting warmed up, I'm just, I'm in a zone, because I put in hundreds and hundreds of hours for that last fight of training, and I'm prepared to redline it for 15 minutes. But it only took, a little less than 2 minutes. As I'm getting closer to the octagon, I've already done this walk 1,000 times with my mind coach. So I've been there, I felt it, um, you know, visualization and manifesting is a huge part of my practice and just fighting career. And so I've done all that. And then once I literally step foot in the octagon, it's I can flip a switch. A lot of people that know me, they're like, you would never know Josh fought. I would never know you fight, just how I am. But when people see me in there, it's like a different person. And my wife knows me the best, the biggest supporter. she knows how hard I train and work throughout camp. So she can see it. Like she sees when I'm like pacing back and forth and like when I kind of flip that switch and it is a different me. And we kind of jokingly were like, oh, it's like my alter ego, you know. But when I do step in there, I take it very, very serious because I'm fighting for my life and livelihood. And I like my mindset is I will never give up. Like I will never stop. And people that watch my fights, they see that. Where some fighters, you know, I feel like sometimes they want a way out, and maybe they'll just cover up. The ref will start to warn them, and they don't do anything. I'm like they want out of the fight, and so it's like I would gladly help them. Here you go. Here's your way out. But 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 yeah, like when I get in there, it's serious. So I'm just like I'm thinking in my mind the coaches behind me, the three that I've mentioned that have been there my whole career. My job is to protect them. So I'm thinking about the people that are there fight week with me, my dietitians, my all my coaches, my close friends and family, my wife, my mom, like in-laws, everyone. I'm going in there to protect the people behind me. And I don't care what happens. I will not stop. I will never cower away, and I'm going to keep on. I'm going to keep on going. You know, moving forward. At all costs. Like there is nothing that's gonna, you'll never see me give up. Like, and that's my mindset going in there. Once, I get a big finish, like I did against Bryce. People that I don't know. I know I was getting like criticized for some celebration, but it's like it's man, it's if you haven't fought and it's hard to explain just because how crazy and brutal this sport, if you want to call it that, actually is. And it's just like raw emotions and like it's truly is like a modern day gladiator. It's bizarre when I'm walking out and if you're in the crowd, like my wife and mom and friends, they're not there for entertainment. They just go to support me. They literally show up right before my fight and they sit there silent. But from them watching, um, not knowing what's going to happen too, it's just the people. It's crazy. It's like I'm walking into the to the Coliseum and people are just like screaming like so crazy and like it is like some of that that where they almost like I'll give them the thumbs down like like people are wild. They're crazy. So it's like, but that is what they're paying for. People are buying the pay-per-view and people are buying the tickets because they want to see what I did. Like they want to see like a lot of people want to see like boxing with MMA gloves on the feet. When people start taking them down and wrestling or doing jujitsu, they're like, boo, stand them up. This is mixed martial arts. You should have just watched boxing if that's what you want to see. But I know people want to see knockouts. They want to see exciting fights. I've never been in a boring fight, and I found success on my feet with my hands, and that's why I was able to, you know, get to where I'm at so fast too. And because, I know what the UFC wants to see. I know what Dana White and the fans want to see. And so I truly go in there because I want to be exciting. I want to put on like all these crazy fights. And I've had multiple fight of the night bonuses, a lot of, knockout of the night bonuses. And I like those better because a fight of the night is when it's back and forth the entire fight. I'm like, oh man, sometimes I don't want to go through all that. But yeah, it's just it is it's an insane like feeling and emotions and all that. But then afterwards, when I did see, I'm celebrating, and then when I did see Bryce, still down, that's when it's tough because he is a really really good person, genuine person as well. So that's when I'm like, oh man, I just had to take a knee and pray that everything works out and he comes back too and no lingering injuries and he did that and we've been messaging back and forth like private messages and he was back home and he's doing well and it I don't know. It's hard because two people are going in the octagon. One person's going to lose. You hope it's not you. I'm going in there every time to do just exactly what I did December 16th, or if not even more violent, because that is my job, and I'm going to do it every single time, and I'm going to choose myself every single time. But you know, he's getting a lot of, and that's just the internet, going back to social media and the internet, the internet does not win or does not lose. Like they're undefeated. And so it is kind of hard seeing certain things that people like comment and say to him, but they do it to me. They do it to everybody, but it's just like, I'm like, man, I wish he wasn't getting so much. I don't know. Even just seeing it's like viral. It's everywhere. This knockout. I'm like, oh man, poor guy. But I've been on the other end as well. So it's just part of the game.
Right. So you spoke of your techniques earlier, and how you excel on, being on your feet and with your arms and everything. So this is actually my favorite community question, which is, if you were to become an NFT on VeVe,
Mhm.
we can talk rarities. Let's talk about, just imagine you being an NFT on VeVe. What kind of and the rarities or animated, how would you envision that? Like, what kind of techniques would you have for that animation? What kind of sound?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It has to be something with the overhand right, and it would have to be, I have this tattoo of a bomb on my right hand. It would have to be when I connect, just my right hand just kind of blowing up. And yeah, I got the bomb a long time ago because Joe Rogan's always like years ago announcing every time I'm like throwing as hard as I can. He's like Emmett is just throwing bombs with every punch. But it would have to be something like that because that's like my signature overhand right. I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's got his overhand right. I'm like, okay, I'll land it on anyone, but it would have to be, me swinging, connecting on something, and then maybe it is a bomb on my right hand, and then as soon as it lands on the target, it just boom, this huge explosion. And yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. But it would be nice. I know people have talked, whether it's on Twitter or I hopped into Sanjay's Twitter space the other day, and people were talking about NFTs and, hey, can the UFC get licensed with VeVe? And I was like, oh, that would be amazing. Or I'm like, maybe let's just do a deal, VeVe and myself. But it would be fun because I do have some of the moments on UFC Strike and things like that. Those are pretty cool, but they just show that the knockouts like Top Shot.
Mm. So do you know anybody from the UFC who are also interested in VeVe or just collecting in general?
I know O'Day, he fights in the UFC. He's he was big in the VV back in the day. I'm not sure if he still is, but a lot of my coaches, so all the three guys that I keep talking about, my coaches, um, they're all into VV because of me.
Wow.
I've got him, especially Joey. Like he'll get a lot of the collectibles, and I got him to get some OMI, and then even actually all my coaches have OMI, but I got him into. Um, the collectibles and things like that a few years ago because I fought on this same card 2 years ago in 2021, and we were doing like all the drops and stuff like that, and we're like, oh man, the Wi-Fi is bad in this hotel. Kind of things were kind of going off. And even this fight, when I was cutting weight the last like handful of pounds on Friday morning, so the 15th, and then we had the Star Wars drop, the number one comic book, or it was Return of the Jedi, right? And I was like, I set my alarm and I was like cutting weight, but we all had to stop, and I was gonna do it, but then all like the delays they had, and so then they pushed it back an hour, and then they pushed it back, till 12, and then the next day, and then Monday. So we're like, oh man, what the heck? But it was fun. It was just kind of funny. We were all stopped the weight cut just so we could try to get the drop. And then someone else mentioned they're like, maybe that's why you won because you were so frustrated that they delayed the drop. So I was like, yeah, let's just blame it on VeVe. So VeVe got me the win. VeVe got me the win.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna read this question exactly as it is. From the perspective of getting something you want so bad, what has been your biggest buzz in the cage versus biggest buzz as a collector on VeVe?
The biggest what?
What has been your biggest buzz in the octagon versus the biggest buzz as a collector on VeVe?
Yeah, a buzz.
Okay. What I want the most. Man, honestly, in the in the UFC, it's like I only wanted to fight in the UFC. It was UFC or nothing. So when I got into MMA a long time ago, being a fan of the sport, I got offered to fight in other promotions that were big and they're great, but my goal was only to fight in the UFC. So it took me a lot longer to get there. Um, but I'm so grateful that I just kind of held out and I turned every promotion down. I didn't want to get locked into any contract because I wanted to fight in the biggest, best platform in the world. And I made my UFC debut on a 4 or 5 day notice. Someone got injured and I actually got into the UFC. I got a call from the matchmaker and my manager at the time. And this is almost 8 years ago. And asked if I wanted to fight. I said, this weekend? I said, oh, of course. Not knowing that it was in the Netherlands. It was in Rotterdam. So
Wow.
by the time I got off the phone, my coach is like, hey, so like, where are we fighting? I was like, I don't know. So then I didn't even know who I was fighting. So I had to call him back and I'm like, where is this? Because I thought it was in 2 weeks, like the following week. And he said, no, it's this weekend and it's in Rotterdam. So I was like, oh man. So I literally, and I'm like, and who am I fighting? And then they told me, I was just so excited. I just said yes. And then I didn't even know what was going on. Um, but yeah, so I had to go home. I packed. I flew across the world on a 4 day notice, landed in Amsterdam, cut a bunch of weight. I was fighting at 155 at the time, cut a bunch of weight, and yeah, went and put it on this guy in my first UFC day, my debut ever, and I won it was a phenomenal fight and beat a tough guy on a 4 day notice, and then so that's got to be like nothing can top that as far as like the UFC, like the buzz. And then on VeVe, man, I've let's see, I was doing a lot of like the golden moments. I was excited about those. I didn't get the Walt drop, but I did get my first secret rare actually yesterday or 2 days ago. I got on the X-Men comic book, is that Omega red with holding up Wolverine. Like, and Wolverine was my favorite. Like, I loved X-Men growing up. I collected X-Men cards and obviously basketball cards, but so that was pretty fun. Also I got I always wanted the secret rare Spider-Man too, but as I was in there, the price was just running up so much. It was like 50, 65 thousand plus gems. And but as like the market has been coming down, of course, we've been in bear market for a while. So I was able to get, my secret rare Spider-Man. Yeah, so I think I was pretty excited about that as well. And even like a Walt, like same type of thing. That ran up so much. I missed that drop. And then I just obviously just keep an eye on everything. And then I was able to snag one of those as well. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about some of that stuff. I think I have quite a bit of grails. The only one that I do not have yet is the Miles Morales, the SR. But hey, you never know. Maybe if we have a little dip here, or maybe I can. We'll see.
Yeah.
Did you happen to use any of those winnings to get any other pieces for your collection?
No, I haven't yet. I do get like a handful of stuff, like but I haven't. I have some of the gold and silver logos, the VeVe. I like those a lot. And this is a funny thing because I had one, and then it's weird. Like as I'm fighting, I always see like, so I was 18-4 at the time. I'm like, I see 19 all the time, like numbers and stuff, because I'm going to be 19-4. So this is why I saw the gold and silver logo that was 194. I'm like, oh, I have to get that one too because I'm about to be 19-4. So I bought the 194 logo like maybe 2 weeks before my fight, but I haven't you know bought any extra stuff yet. I've just, I did get a handful of a few different projects in like crypto and stuff like that, with a little bit of the winnings.
Very cool. So while you've been collecting, do you feel like anything has well, you did share that you were looking at those bigger pieces and everything. Um, but do you see anything that stood out in particular, like maybe with the animations or something that just really struck a chord with you, like just it just hit deep?
I'm trying to think of like even no, not really. Just I feel like it's just it's been fun. Like it's bringing me back to like as I was a kid buying X-Men packs, like cards and basketball cards. So when I'm buying these collectibles, and I would always try to do the comics, because it's 6.99 and possible chance to get it in the secret rare. I always go for, but I swear I only get the commons. Like I've never got I've got like a few uncommons and a few things here and there, but I'm like common gang all the way. And then I actually hit my first secret rare the other day, and I was pretty happy about that because my favorite character, Wolverine. But as far as everything else goes, it's I don't buy them just because of like the animation or whatnot. It's just it is just it's been fun, and it's just hard because sometimes I'll buy something and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop for a while, but I'm like they're so good, and they just every drop. I'm like, okay, I got to get this one. Okay, I got to get this. It's never ending. I'm like, man, yeah, it's hard.
So, how would you compare this project to any other ones that you may be a part of? And feel free to share as much as you'd like on any of the other projects. But yeah, just what what was the appeal with this platform?
Yeah, I think at first I found VeVe because of OMI. So I found the OMI token first years ago, and I was, I was one of the guys that I think I bought my first million OMI at, it was like 0.008. So I was like, oh man. But as it's come down over, of course, it's come down quite a bit. I've just been, just DCAing the entire time on the way down. So I brought my average down a lot. And then yeah, I found VeVe through Omi, and it's easy. That's the biggest thing. Like the barrier to entry is so easy. It's like everyone has an iPhone. You download the VeVe app, and then it doesn't get any easier than that. Apple Pay to get some gems, and then it's just like you just go on and buy stuff. It makes it so easy. Whereas like obviously you guys know it's tough for people that are in crypto and other NFTs, and you're messing with different wallets, and you're bridging or you're transferring certain things, and you're going here, and like people just don't understand that. And it is a big learning experience. And so I think some people just it's tough for them. But I what I'm doing is back in 2000 or 2020, I went down the rabbit hole. Like I was into crypto and stuff, and then I didn't understand NFTs. I'm managed by Vayner Sports, so you know Gary and AJ Vaynerchuk. I was on a call with AJ, and they were going to release their Gary was going to release his V friends. And I was just I was going to get him. I was all in. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is great because we knew. But then I saw the art. I was like, I don't. And this is when ETH was at like its all time high. It was like 4,400 or not all time high, but it was like 42, 4,400. And then these things were like half a ETH and stuff. And I was just looking at them. I did not understand the utility and NFTs at the time. I was like, how am I going to spend this much money on this? Um, and then, of course, everything is just going absolutely insane. So I went down the rabbit hole. I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours, like watching YouTube videos, reading, just everything I possibly could. I listened to Gary, and I educated myself in this space. Whereas, like I did the same thing. I bought a lot of different NFTs, and I was a part of different projects. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. You just think you can just throw throw a dart at something, and it just anything, and the price goes, your ROI goes, it's insane. But I lost a lot of money, and because I learned it's all about the community. It's all about the founders. And so that's why I've just kind of doubled down, and I've been going hard on just founders for one, because they have phenomenal track records, and David and Dan have just that. And there's a lot of other projects in like with OpenSea and just the other NFTs that I think will do great in the future. And so I've just been kind of DCing into those, the entire bear market as well, because I do see, I think this is the way the world is shifting. Digital NFTs, like it's like you guys get it, and I do feel like we're early, and I'm super bullish on, of course, VeVe, and I think even OMI's going to do well. When they incorporate everything that they've been working on, and I actually just booked my flights. My wife and I are going to go to Paris. We're going to go to the Crypto XR event, you know, and then after we do that, we're going to go out to Switzerland and stuff like that. But it's yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. I'm having fun with this, and I feel like crypto and NFTs is like a passion of mine. Like I don't. It's funny because like you guys probably have hobbies that you guys love as well. It's like I have a lot of friends that like golf or disc golf or hike, and I'll do all these things, but I'm not so like passionate about it. Or one of my good friends scuba dives. He's like, hey, you get certified, but I'm just like it just doesn't excite me. Like I'll go and do these things, but it's not something that I want to get up at 5 a.m. and do like all the time or every weekend. But whereas I found, the digital collectibles and NFTs and crypto and things like that, it is a passion of mine, and it's something that I like. I love, and I love talking, like just reading things like on X and stuff like crypto Twitter and things like that, or in the discords. I just like I like it. It's fun, and it is like a passion of mine that I would get up at 5 a.m. every day and do this stuff for years, and I have been doing it because it's exciting.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of your most special VeVe NFTs. And these are like short questions only. Tell us about your first VeVe collectible, your favorite, your most valuable collectibles, um, biggest loss, win, and lessons. So let's start with your very first VeVe collectible.
Seeing that this is kind of bad because I don't even know what my first VeVe collectible is. I'm assuming it had to be one of the I would just have to go back. It has to be one like a comic book because that's kind of how I found it, and I was doing the comic book. So I probably got
Mm.
a common comic book um back in September of 2021. Yeah.
Okay. What about your most valuable or your favorite collectible?
Yeah, so I have to go. Probably my favorite is probably the like the Walt and the Spider-Man secret rare,
Mm.
and of
And
course the gold and silver logo, the VeVe. Like those three I feel like are my favorite, and probably also my most valuable.
okay. What about your biggest win or loss?
Let's see. Uh, Probably biggest win, but paper win because I never sold it. But when I did buy, like I bought Todd, and then it ran up to like 13,000, then I wrote it all the way back down. So that'd probably be my biggest win and loss. Because I got it for a decent price. Maybe it was like I bought it for like $1,000 or something, and it 13x, and then kind of watched it come all the way back down. So that goes into both categories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and and also, what are some lessons that you have learned from maybe over 2 years of collecting on VeVe now?
Yeah, it is just kind of like you have to be patient, and that's with anything, even going back to the fighting. It's like the more calm and patient and just relax and wait. You don't want to FOMO into anything. You don't want to chase things or red candles, and that's when a lot of people that's when they're buying. They're like, oh, I got to get this, and then they buy it, and then it typically, will correct. But yeah, it's just being patient and just kind of watching the market, and especially the days too. I would see as we get closer to the weekend, like Thursday to Saturday or Sunday, the prices would run up, and then they come down during the week. And I think just keeping an eye on everything, and especially with some of the tools that other people have made now, makes it easier for collectors to kind of watch things and snipe some stuff. And yeah, but there's so many, it's like it's so many, and sometimes like I'm always on the app or I'm always doing things, but then as I'm in camp and I'm getting closer and closer to fight, I sometimes, if it's just like a big drop, then I'll just set an alarm and like a reminder for that, and then I try to get caught up after my fights.
Right. Mr. V.
Um, so while you're collecting, it seems like it's a cool little escape from the hustle that like of every day that you're training. Um, but while you're collecting these things, do you find that do you ever feel this like impulse to stack anything, or is it just like cherry picking those things that you do like and just like and then limiting your exposure so that
Mhm.
you can kind of just enjoy it a little bit more that way?
Yeah, and that's something that I've learned too throughout this. I used to just go for everything, but now it is, if it's something that I just like, I enjoy, and or I liked when I was, you know, uh, you get much younger, I'll go for it. And then a handful of the stuff, like you're saying, it's some of the grails. I do feel like I think they'll do really well because with all the other NFT collections, there's so many. A lot of them are like 10,000 PFP collections and so on. Whereas VeVe, like some of the secret rare stuff, it is so scarce, and it is the first of this with this major IP. So I do feel that um, you know, not only is it fun, but I do look at this stuff like just being honest, like as an investment as well with a handful of things, and I think they will do well if things continue to move this way that I think they will. Um, so yeah, that is nice to stack a handful of things because of course, as we know, it's like you do, if you only have one, you do kind of fall in love with this thing. You're like, I'm not letting this thing go, or you think, oh, it's going to keep going. Where it's like, but if you have at least two, you're like, I'll always hold on to one, but I'll sell one. And if you have more than two, it's just nice. As it starts to run up, maybe you sell one, maybe it gets higher, you sell another one, and then hold on to one. Just kind of have your one that you're going to hold on to forever. So it is nice with some of the more scarce and some of the bigger IPs. I think, with my opinion, it is smart to stack some, at least two, maybe multiple.
Um, so another thing that this is a personal question of mine. What kind of content do you like to consume? Because and the reason I ask this is because like I remember when I was like whenever I had to cut weight, whether it was like sitting in a sauna or being on a treadmill or whatever, I just try and keep my mind as busy as possible. And I'd be back then. I don't think there were spaces on Twitter or X, um, and like I just listen to music to keep my mind busy. What kind of content do you like to consume, whether it be on YouTube, X, reading articles, things like that? And have you ever found yourself consuming that content while you're doing any of your cuts?
Yeah, and that's like I don't watch any TV, and it's kind of great. I don't watch TV. I would rather be watching YouTube videos and stuff like that, just like educational stuff, whatever it may be. But I do, as far as content, I watch a lot of YouTube. And this is with different um, like crypto NFTs, but it's that realm, that's I'm like I like I really enjoy this. So like that's most of the stuff. And then obviously I'm on, crypto and NFT Twitter, X. It's like I just that's what I kind of look into, and I do that a lot. But I used to just, same as you. I always just music while I'm working out. But now I still do that when I need the extra like just motivation or just kind of really get me going. I need to like turn up some loud music and just kind of get in the zone and focus on certain things. But I do find myself watching a lot of just yeah, YouTube channels and things like that. And while I'm working out, or I'm cutting weight, or I'm doing these things, I find myself just listening to that, and because it does take my mind off of it. And I used to always do this during a fight camp. My wife and I would always go on a big trip after a fight. So one of the things I used to love to do is wherever we're going to go, I would spend time on doing research on like, okay, booking our flights and doing all these things and going to all these hotels and restaurants in different countries. And that would be a thing that kind of took my mind off of the fight. And it was just fun for me. So I find myself doing that with a lot of YouTube.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So this is also a personal question, and I think this is one question I'm super excited to ask you, which is, and it is a two-part question, and you can choose whichever you want to answer. But the first part is, when you are in a fight and you get hit, how do you get back into the zone? Or if you're in a zone, how do you stabilize yourself mentally and physically to get back at it? Because they're like, there's a saying, like, everybody has a plan until they get hit, right? And
Right.
and the second question is somewhat similar, like, how do you stay emotionally stable? Because sometimes you win a fight, sometimes you lose a fight, and that affects your emotion a lot, I would assume.
Mhm.
You obviously work with mind coaches. Can you give us some tips to, how, like, deal with things in real life, even because there's a lot of similarity there?
Mhm. Yeah, and that's a great question. It's man, I've been competing and playing sports. Like I'm a competitor my entire life. And so it's like anything, the more calm and just patient, like patience is everything, like calm, composed, collected. I put in the work already. So I'm gonna go into a fight. It's a fight. You're going to get hit. So there are some people that, they get hit and they get angry and they say they have tunnel vision or blackout or whatever, they just see red. I don't. I've been doing this so long and it's just like work to me. So I go in there with a plan, of course. And this sounds kind of crazy. But it's like the only time that I'm truly at peace is when I am fighting in the
Mm,
octagon, even though I don't like to fight. Like I don't, and that sounds nuts too. I don't like to fight. Um, but I love the lifestyle. I love what I'm trying to achieve, what I'm trying to accomplish for my family. But I'm at peace because it's the only time that I've tried to be a lot better with this, but it's the only time I'm truly living in the moment. Like I'm not thinking about the future. I'm not thinking about the past. There's a guy in front of me, and it's a it's a puzzle that I'm trying to solve, and it's like they say, it's like human chess, and it truly is. Like I'm collecting all this data that when I'm feigning or when I'm like circling to one way, I'm breaking everything down and I'm seeing how does he react. Okay, and okay, he drops out a little, or he actually bit on that feint. It's like I'm literally collecting all this, just knowing that I can use it later on. I'm not going to throw something right away because I'm just seeing kind of where I'm at, and but it is just it's like peaceful because it's just wild to me, but but it is peaceful. I'm at peace then. I'm in the present, and yeah, it's what was the other question?
yeah. So after a win or a loss,
Mhm,
you obviously get very excited or very frustrated. So there's a
mhm.
lot of emotions going on.
Yeah.
What techniques do you have to deal with that? Or what suggestions do you have for folks like myself and Mr. V in dealing with things in life that resemble that win or that loss?
Yeah, and with doing, whether you win or lose and frustration and emotions, like you have the right to those. Like you have, you can think or feel however you want, but man, that's life. Like no matter what you're doing, whether it's relationships, school, work, fighting, anything, it's like you have to go through adversity. Um, you have to go through difficult times in order to, I feel that like better yourself and grow, whether they're lessons or whatever it may be. But yeah, you just have to. you have to have a short memory too, especially in my sport. You have to have a short memory. We have the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I've been in some like, dark places with, losses and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's like none of that matters. It's like I want this, so I have to continue to move forward and get back to work to get what I want. I'm very goal oriented and driven, like self-driven. Like um I don't need motivation. I don't need this. I feel like discipline is is the greatest key. If you just are consistent and you have some goals that you want to achieve and you get up every single day and you work towards those goals and you get a little better than you were the other day, you're going to eventually get there. And if you have the right head on your shoulders, and so that's just my mindset is like one of my strongest attributes. I feel that, I'm so mentally like there and tough. And I feel like I owe a lot to my mind coach, Joshua Manuel. He's part of a fight mindset. He's like he works with special forces. He works with law enforcement, of course, UFC champions and other individuals. And he's helped me and harden my mind and just have a different outlook on so many things. And that's not only just fighting. It's just, even just everyday life and even going through whatever, you can change and do whatever you want as long as you want it bad enough. Um,
Yeah. So we are almost at time, and we want to be respectful of your time. So one last question, and so this is because a lot of the collectors in the community follow you and your career. What is your next fight? And some people are also wondering about whether you're going to have a fight with Max Holloway. So maybe you can give us some details about your next steps.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know when my next fight will be. I know the matchmakers are probably coming up with something right now, and I'm sure I'll get my management will get a call in the coming weeks or after the first of the year. But yeah, I just kind of have to. I do want that fight though. Max Holloway he was one of the greatest featherweight champions of all time. When I think about, the best featherweights that there've been, it's always Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski, the current champion, and Jose Aldo. And Volkanovski has Max's, he just has his number. He's beat him 3 times. I know there's been some close fights, but Volkanovski's won 3 times. Max is the number one contender. He was a phenomenal champion. I don't know him personally, but seems like a great person inside and outside of the octagon. And I just want a clear path to the title shot again. So why not go knocking at the door of the guy that holds that number one contender spot? I beat him. I'm fighting for the title again. I fought for the interim title earlier this year in Australia, and it didn't go my way. I've made a lot of just like I've done a lot of things different, and I've got back to my roots. What got me into the UFC. So I'm just trying to, I want to get back there. And I feel like I have like a year or something to make a solid run at the title again. I think my career will be long, but realistically, 2024, I'll be the UFC featherweight champion of the world.
All right. Josh, thank you so much for your time today. To be honest, I learned way more than I expected. Because the intention of this call was on VeVe, but I learned a lot more about being patient, because you work extremely hard, and now you are where you are today because you have put in the discipline, the patience, and everything, and also to how to deal with, again, wins and loss and those kind of things. And so we really appreciate you joining us today. We hope that you have a great time with your family in your trip to France and Switzerland. And also, side note, we really hope that you land a good rarity, probably hopefully like a secret rare when Wolverine, your favorite collectible, actually comes out. And most importantly, more wins in the future.
Cool. Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you guys, and yeah, hope you guys have a great Christmas and yeah, phenomenal 2024.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You too,
Same
man.
to you.
All right, you guys take care.
All right. Take care,
All right.
Josh.
Yeah.
See ya. That is it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have enjoyed the episode today. And if you have, remember that gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. just for you. But in return, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out on the actionable and valuable insights, everything VeVe and OMI related. Don't forget to give us a rating and tweet at us to let us know what you think about the podcast so that we can refine the content better just for you. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again next time. Peace.